Welcome everyone here to another to another episode of another reaction. Now this time I want to take myself a focus on something a little bit different. You can see here that well, alright. Damn it. That happened, but anyways, allow me here to put on here the entirety of the video. I'll give you now as well a shout out to Sargon of Akkad. It's a good let's say channel that I've been watching for, well, recently started watching for quite a bit of while now. And holy shit, I mean, oops, sorry. I mean, literally, this guy here, he gives like a very technical, visualization of their society. I know he will be like cigarette like, but no. The main point that I'm trying to say is that this is it's fan made. It's since this guy here has like a lot of things here that he has a good reason why to have like a fans. Then of course being one of the great, because well, interpreting one of the biggest philosophers of the Greek society back at the Greek Empire. And back to what it is nowadays, am I right? And yeah, and then again, you might laugh a bit by society, like so many things we just let pass through, and we didn't even notice. But sometimes this guy noticed and not. But nevertheless, I will restart the recording here for the time being, and yeah, so I can start my reaction. Also, a little shout out to another city about the United States I once been a very long time ago that I loved it. Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe. Really. I've mostly been there by the summer. Like a huge, big ski resort for snowboarding, skiing, whatever. And like I haven't been this summer. Yet, I say. But mark my words. But maybe one day I might visit there in December to see how it may be like. Anyways, without further ado, let's allow me to chat less while I focus more on my. Alright, here we go.
I have enjoyed several conversations with individuals and groups of people who identify as alt-right, with the intention of understanding what this movement is. The following is an attempt to examine honestly and objectively what I have discovered, to present an accurate description of the movement's main concerns, methods and goals.
Yeah, just a little introduction here. But then again, just so that he claims like, oh, you're stealing him. No, I'm not just going to, I was going to jump it off for a bit. An honest look at the alt-right. There we go. That'll be better. Now you, go watch him.
Alternative right was coined by Richard Spencer in 2010 and has become an umbrella term to describe a neo-reactionary movement to push back against progressive domination of political and social spheres. This is done by creating an idea space in which issues such as race and nationalism can be discussed without considering left-wing positions on the subject. This puts the alt-right outside of mainstream conservatism, which is dominated by left-wing philosophies on the subject of race, nationalism and gender relations, which is summed up in the alt-right by the pejorative label cuckservative, which in many ways is a mirror of the liberal use of regressive left. In many ways, the alt-right seems to be a reaction to the lack of conservative doctrine on subjects dominated by left-wing points of view. This new idea space is not radically different from the idea of a progressive's safe space, and functions much in the same way. It's a place for certain ideas and attitudes to be cultivated and honed, without their fundamental premises being challenged, in order to establish a more concrete understanding and adherence, and ensure that these ideas can be discussed in comfort. These spaces are not usually open to ideas and participants outside of the alt-right, and can result in the same kind of intellectual protectionism that takes place in the regressive left when concepts.
Back when I was studying humanities or something like, or it's called again, like philosophy, it's about that. I mean, if there was something that I noticed a lot and I couldn't really have the words to describe it, it was this. I mean, sometimes you say actually something. Let's say I take the term about, well, what could it be a good one? Let's say I say my opinion about pens. There you go. I say my idea about pens, but suddenly someone gets offended, and again feel like I perpetrated their space of their safe space or something like that. Or I could also say about Xbox or something like that. Then again, it's all just pretty much like a big joke. Or is it not? What? No, it's not a big joke. No, sorry, sometimes I tend to say words like I shouldn't even should say. But hey, we all make mistakes. But yeah, that's a bit, let's say, a huge impact about everything indeed. You would but yeah, I'm just thinking about the Xbox and everything here as a, well, as a imaginary form of saying other idealisms, such as, well, let's put it as idealism such as feminism, communism, whatever, capitalism, you name it. But even though no matter how much you speak of it, just no matter in what way or form, even if you're going to say something good about something, even there's always going to be that one person to attack you, or more. Like if you say, oh, I like furries, and then it comes like those guys, they'll look at you with those squinty, judging eyes. Well, I mean, you get the general idea. But if you do want to, of course, to know more about the other videos about This Week in Stupid, we could also take a look at that. Not just a matter of fact that we're gonna watch 2 videos of his. This being one of Sargon of Akkad, an honest look at the alternative rights, and a recent This Week in Stupid. Well, screw it, 3. We're gonna have another This Week in Stupid because, well, some people are really cringeworthy that words are not enough to describe it. Very well.
Concepts that undermine the precepts of the discussion are introduced, and this can result in similar calls to no platform proponents of these ideas. Under the umbrella of alt-right is a conglomeration of individuals that broadly agree on a set of core ideas, but hold to a wide variety of ancillary beliefs. These disagreements are rarely, if ever, points of genuine contention, and seem to operate on more of a sliding scale between uncontested to zealously believed, but apparently not including categorically wrong. This laissez-faire attitude towards points of ideological disagreement is certainly vital to the cohesiveness of the alt-right, and would probably cause its disintegration into many splinter movements if one ideological position became dogmatic and gained hegemony over all potential alt-right idea spaces. This is important because the alt-right is not, as they will tell you at great length, a single homogeneous movement with a streamlined set of beliefs, although there are a certain select set of issues on which there is common agreement. Number 1. White or nationalist identity politics. The most common thread that seems to run across the entire spectrum of the alt-right is the concept of an international white genetic and social identity, which can be subdivided from broad categories such as white European down into Northwestern European, Southern European, Eastern European, and these categories can doubtless be drilled down into even further using national borders and local regions. The white race is often considered to be an expanded family unit. As one adopts a collectivist attitude towards the family, it's considered that one should do so towards the nation and then the white race as a whole. This of course begs the question, who exactly is white? With people of mixed race ancestry generally being accepted as white if they appear to be white. This is, however, not an issue on which there is universal consensus. But there is a general consensus that appears to be that since the regressive left has decided to make racialism a key issue, and have decided to back one side of it, the side that can accurately be termed as anti-white,
Anti-white.
My concern is doing away with whiteness. Whiteness is a form of racial oppression, sure. The suggestion is that it is somehow possible to separate whiteness from oppression, and it is not. There can be no white race without the phenomenon of white supremacy. If you abolish slavery, you abolish slaveholders. In the same way, if you abolish racial oppression, you do away with whiteness. Treason to whiteness is loyalty to humanity.
What the hell?
White Europeans can and should naturally adopt the pro-white side, with these people often naming themselves as white advocates, due to the negative response commonly received by white nationalist or racialist. Other than this, there is nothing new or unusual about the identity politics practiced in the alt-right. It's the same brand of racial, religious and nationalist tribalism that is practiced in the regressive left, except that it's approached from the opposite direction. Instead of condemning Christianity or whiteness and denouncing white history, the alt-right instead thinks very highly of white culture and history and believes that it should be preserved at all costs, and that there should be a focus on the survival of the white race. 2. White genocide. Across the alt-right, it is common to encounter the idea that there is currently, in progress, a genocide taking place against white people. This is, of course, the essential data point used by an overwhelming majority in the alt-right to create a narrative of white victimhood that fuels and justifies white nationalist identity politics. The existence of a white genocide is established by an interpretation of the UN definition of genocide. This is defined as any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or part, a national, ethnical, racial or religious group, such as killing members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction, in whole or part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. The most common alt-right interpretation of this definition means that there is currently being perpetrated an ongoing genocide of the white race. According to most, many influential groups in society are knowingly acting to eradicate the white race through demographic destruction over an extended period of time via the use of mass immigration. This is established by population projections derived from comparisons of birth rates between native populations and recent immigrant groups. According to some forecasts, in the UK and the United States there are birth rates that are below the replacement rate. There are projections that non-Muslims will be a minority in some Western countries, such as Britain, by 2050. Many in the alt-right therefore believe that the native white population will not compete with non-white immigrants, who have a greater birth rate on average. It's important to note that these demographic trends are not necessarily false, but are certainly exaggerated and exclude key factors. Studies have shown that Muslim fertility rates are high in recent immigrants, but reduce over time to normalise with the native population, a phenomenon which is probably directly connected to a rise out of poverty. Trends show that as populations become wealthier, birth rates drop dramatically. The Pew Research Centre asserts that by 2030 the Muslim population of Britain will have grown from 4.6%, which it was in 2011, to 8.2%, with the majority of the increase due to immigration trends, undoubtedly exacerbated by the recent migrant crisis, and not birth rates. Germany is usually the most frequently cited example of extermination by demographic change, as Germany's birth rates among native Germans is one of the lowest in the world at 1.4 children born to every German woman, compared to the commonly cited ideal replacement rate of 2.1. It is important to note that Germany is the exception in Northern Europe and not the rule, as the United States, Britain, Australia, France, Norway and Sweden all have 1.9 or greater replacement rates, and do not face demographic collapse in the foreseeable future. The alt-right argument for white genocide is therefore strongest in Germany, but even then the definition of genocide is based on intent. Specifically, the acts listed done with intent to destroy the white race and European culture in whole or part. Opinion within the alt-right obviously varies on this point, ranging from perhaps not deliberate to a direct plot with malice of intent. However, the outcome, the predicted extinction or reduction to minority status of the white race, is more important than the intentions of those who enact policies that are perceived to be causing this eventuality. The groups considered to be responsible for the genocide are comprised of Marxist academics, and consequently their students, many of whom are openly racist against white people.
How so? Why does white life have value?
Well, I think
for who? No, excuse me. For who? Our argument is that white life is wrong.
Why?
Our argument is that we should never affirm white life. That your argument of just affirming all life in general is not good, especially not good for black people when white life itself is based off of.
Dude. I mean, not to cause any disrespect to anyone here, but I mean, this guy looks like he's about to throw a tantrum with his snapback on. Really, a snapback. Oh boy, and he thinks he can take out the entire reason. No. Oh boy, let's see how this is gonna go. In 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah, but first 1 second. Yeah, there we go. But you ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's see how this is gonna go.
Why shouldn't we affirm my life?
You're probably white.
I am white. Why shouldn't we affirm my life?
I don't understand why I have to care about your life anyways. There's no ethical reason as to why white people deserve to live. Affirming black life means that white death has to occur. But that's why you should lose this debate. Why your life ain't worth affirming.
What the fuck? He's so desperate. He is so desperate. What the hell is that? I've never met anyone like that.
Because you have white privilege.
Why does having white privilege?
White privilege, yes. What the hell does that mean? No, don't become racist.
Putting your body on the line. Do it. Affirm your suicide.
Suicide?
I mean, it's one little form. It's one little step in the right direction.
The self-hating European political class
Hey, he was only happy.
And the Jews attempting to force multiculturalism on white populations.
Huh? This here might take a bit of a while to load, I don't know, but for now on, what the hell just happened so far?
One of them is Barbara Specter, a former American who made Aliyah and then 10 years ago, with the help of the government of Sweden, set up a non-denominational institute of Jewish learning with the Greek name of Paideia.
I think there's a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we're going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies that they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a
First things first, alright. World War II, concentration, Holocaust, everything bad. Listen, I have respect for who has their religious beliefs, but honestly, you're trying to replace someone with the other, but no, that's multicultural. So having both of them, but having Jews in the center, I don't know. But have you noticed around that some of these people give me the itch behind the ear that they want to change the world for their own greed. I mean, let's say this man doesn't like because there are too many white people in the world, and he wants to have more Asian people in the world. Let's say, what's the point in that? I mean, if you don't like something, either you deal with it or find ways to deal with it. I mean, society is a whole abroad, and you can't force something that what it is just because you don't like. Can't force something from what it is to what you want it to be, just like that, because it doesn't work like that. And even though like Hitler wanted to really eliminate the Europe or the entire world of all the Jews, that was never gonna work out, really, because let's face it, everyone has like their own free will. And even if someone was going to, I mean, by nature, it's practically impossible about it, unfortunately. But then again, this kind of gives again another itch in the ear about Jews being the center about it. I mean, come to think about it, what would be something that you, I mean, let's say, well, I don't know. Let's say I myself am pretty. I have my own Christian, have my own beliefs, religion, whatnot. Well, there's all hell. What can I say? I mean, there's also like those. I don't know if it's really the fedora wearing guys or not, but those atheists that want to rule, that want to rid all religion of the world. I mean, come on. You can't change the world just because you don't like it. I mean, really, you just gotta learn out the hard way of some things, but it hurts when it comes to think about it, of how desperate some people are, but I don't know. Let me just reset this here again.
Cultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role, but without that leading role and without that...
Rule number 1 about being a human being is to respect yourself and the society you have around. That's the number 1 rule. And and I don't know, I can't assure you for sure, but it feels like they're trying to break it. I mean, it just gives a itch behind the ear that they want to break that rule. Respect yourself and respect the world around you, and the others around you too.
Transformation, Europe will not survive.
What?
It is generally considered that the white genocide is being perpetrated by one or more of these groups to a greater or lesser degree. Even proponents of the idea of a white genocide understand that the term is hyperbolic and does not reflect what people usually understand to be a genocide. However, the term genocide is justified by proponents using these arguments. This is usually out of a deep concern with the future projections of the white race, because one of the most common alt-right beliefs is that without the white race, there can be no Western civilization. 3. Race is culture. Almost all of the alt-rights believe that there are certain types of high-level advanced culture
that are capable
of being created and sustained only by certain biological groups of humans. Influential race-focused thinkers like Jared Taylor believe that Western civilization is a direct result of IQ and dependent on a certain average level being maintained. Western culture is also considered to be a direct expression of white genes, which is not strictly connected to IQ, though it is, to some extent, which is never substantiated but assumed to be correct. Each different culture is usually considered to be directly representative of the genes of the population that expresses it, although there is a lot of flexibility in this and very little of substance to confirm or deny this argument. Some in the alt-rights believe that there is an inherent altruism to white nature. The migrant crisis and mass immigration is often considered to be part of the innate goodness of white people and is not found outside of the white race. In addition to this, there is a common belief that first world countries are white countries, and you cannot have a first world country with a white minority and a non-white majority. Number 4.
That's kind of true.
National segregation. Naturally, due to the previous factors, the alt-right is consistent in the desire for racial segregation by nation, to an overwhelmingly large percentage, with some demanding 0 non-white citizens and others being accepting of 5 to 10% non-white. However, it is always desired that this figure be as low as possible. This is based on the principles of nationalism and self-determination, presumably using Westphalian sovereignty as the moral or legal impetus, although I am yet to come across a self-identified alt-right person who has elucidated it in this way. It's important not to conflate this desire for white national integrity with white supremacy, as many in the alt-right will make it explicitly clear that they are not advocates of genocide or oppression of any race, and simply want distinct racial groups separated from each other.
I want to go on record, because a lot of people are confused. They say, Paul, are you a white supremacist or you a white nationalist or whatever? Okay, I just want to go on record. I fucking hate white supremacists. I hate them. I have nothing to do with white supremacists. I don't have anything to do with any supremacist group. I'm a nationalist. It's totally opposite from a supremacist. And if you're going to be a supremacist and carry pictures of Hitler and dress in a Nazi uniform, you ain't going to make it with anyone anyhow. Kind of like that Beatles song. Right, so what's the difference between a supremacist and a nationalist? It's easy. Being a nationalist, I love it when people have like their 150 bullet points what it means to be a nationalist. No, it's two things only. This is simple. This is like the creed. Remember it. To be a nationalist is, do you believe a people have the right to exist as a people, and do you believe they have a right to self-determination, meaning maintain their culture and their identity? That's it. That's all it means.
However, there is a vocal minority within the alt-right who are white supremacists and do hold to supremacist beliefs, although even they understand the point of good PR. 5. Anti-immigration. The alt-right is categorically against large-scale non-white immigration to white majority nations. Certain racial groups might be considered by some to be preferential to accept as immigrants due to IQ and social factors,
or not,
but it is still assumed that they will not be genetically predisposed to sustaining Western culture and will change the cultural character of any nations to which they emigrate, regardless of intent. 6. Collectivism. The alt-right is a collectivist movement that is concerned primarily with the survival of Western culture and the white race. There are adherents that believe that preferential treatment and rights should be expanded to native groups over immigrant groups, but it is unknown as to how many people hold this view, or in what degree. 7. Authoritarianism. The alt-right contains a strong current of authoritarianism, and many of the policies people in the alt-right actively promote require it in some way. The alt-right is in favour of social engineering. Statistics can be used heuristically to create an understanding and advocacy for policy determined on innate characteristics. These ideas often take the form of legal or financial incentives. The impetus for this is a common perception that white or Western culture has degenerated, and to restore it to its once former glory will require a firm hand. 8. Traditionalism. The alt-right is broadly traditionalist, with almost all adherents being traditionalist to some degree, although there is certainly a great deal of variance from person to person, and non-traditionalists are a part of the community. Many desire what would be considered an actual patriarchy, and consider the loss of this system as a major contributing factor to the decline of society. It's almost universally accepted that feminism has played a major role in the destruction of the nuclear family, and this is a detriment to Western civilization. Many in the alt-right believe that this is part of a Jewish conspiracy, and a return to traditional values will help prevent the decline. The amount that alt-right adherents seek to turn back the clock in this regard varies from person to person, with some seeking just an end to the demonization of men in popular culture, to others seeking to rescind suffrage from women altogether. 9. Anti-Enlightenment values. There is a distinct strain of thought within the alt-right that objects to concepts produced or valued by Enlightenment thinkers, either in part or in whole, such as secularism, egalitarianism, democracy, individualism, and more modern concepts such as human rights. While this is a position espoused by some, it's not a universal characteristic, and is often deeply divisive within the community. This is usually referred to as the Dark Enlightenment. Combined with previous factors, this leads to occasions where people in the alt-right community will advocate for mildly anti-meritocratic ideas in pursuit of the goal of group protection. Meritocracy certainly has an importance to many, but it is rarely considered the most important value, always coming second to the needs of the group. 10. Religion. Most in the alt-right consider religions other than Christianity, especially Islam, to be an enemy out-group. However, this does not mean that, in the case of Islam, members of the alt-right don't have severe disagreements with specific aspects of Islamic dogma. Christianity is broadly considered to be the traditional religion of Western culture and white people, as a cultural node reaching back into history and anchor white people to their past. The depth of this belief varies according to religiosity, with some inclined towards atheism or agnosticism, and others considering Christianity a fundamental part of traditionalism. There is a significant number of neo-pagans who promote a revival of indigenous European religious rites as a more authentic representation of European religious expression, although these are not a majority. Some consider Christianity itself to be a foreign influence that should be expunged.
What?
11. Homosexuality and drug use. A significant number of people in the alt-right believe that the use of any type of intoxicants is degenerate, but many others are quite accepting of alcohol, nicotine, or drug use. It's not a consistent feature, but it is discussed. Homosexuality and its gradient expressions is another controversial topic, with many on both.
Well, what can I do? And what is there to say? I mean, homosexuality is, you know, it's their stuff. Well, because why not? And also, drug use, I do believe whoever wants to use what drugs, it's their consequence. If they're ever going to have their, well, they're gonna have themselves handed to the police, or end up winding dead, or be an addict. Simply as that. That's not my problem, and that's something we shouldn't care about, because unless that's you on drugs, then there's only so much you can do, but we can only help. But well, as I was saying, the outcome would only have come by your hands. I mean, that's of course that's one in many things in life. We can only help, but you can also have to do it by yourself.
Sides of the issue. However, it's viewed in a slightly negative light, probably due to the prominent traditionalist bias, and that the overwhelming majority of the members of the alt-right are heterosexual. 12. The Jews. While anti-Semitism is not universal in the alt-right, it does find strong expression with a large number of adherents. There are a small number of Jewish people who identify as alt-right, and the acceptance of these people varies, with some considering them to be white. However, the question of Jews or a Jewish conspiracy is definitely a controversial and frequently discussed topic within the alt-right, with a significant variety of opinion held by many members to varying degrees. Some believe in a worldwide Jewish conspiracy to eradicate the white race, some do not believe in a conspiracy but are still deeply anti-Semitic. Some people believe Jews are simply overrepresented in certain vocations because the Jews work as an effective racial group, demonstrating in-group preference and should be competed with in the same way. 13. Economics. Many people who identify as alt-right find the movement coming from a libertarian economic position, and as such these people have a strong focus on libertarian economic theory. There seems to be a divergence of opinion on the subject, but not along pro or anti lines, but instead along interested or disinterested lines. Many alt-right members do not care about economics as a discipline, and therefore pay it little attention. Economists that are popular with the alt-right include Murray Rothbard, who is Jewish, and Hans Hermann Hope. How popular these economists are is
Actually, again, about, sexuality, religion, anything else, I mean, not drug use. Drug use, it's, we know it's bad for you, but it's only your own death wish for that. But of course I'm condoning it, but it's only you to follow my lead if you want or not. But then again, religion, ethnicity, you can't just choose what a person is. You can't force, let's say, if Europe is mostly Christian and you want it to be entirely Jewish. I mean, you can't simply force it like that. It's not the way how the world works. And if you believe, then the world's gonna sting and stink as usual.
Known, but Rothbard probably receives substantial criticism due to his ancestry.
As usual, I see at
14.
least.
Racial purity. Racial purity is certainly an issue across the alt-right, although, as with other subjects, the degree of importance placed on this varies widely. 100% racial purity is certainly prestigious, but it is not something that disqualifies one from being a member of the alt-right, as the Jewish adherents demonstrate. Racial purity is more likely to be used as a method of pride or a source of mockery towards any individual of unusually pure or impure ancestry. I have been informed that there are apparently 1 or 2 black individuals within the alt-right, although I have not seen any evidence of this, and it would certainly be the exception. The white race is not necessarily considered to be superior to other races. The prime example of this is that East Asians regularly perform better than Europeans on IQ tests, and some consider this to be a sign of the racial superiority of East Asians, although this will often be offset by the assertion that East Asians are less creative than Europeans. 15. Vague generalities. As the alt-right is a collectivist, racial, identitarian movement, there is a distinct inclination to think in terms of groups instead of individuals, and make judgments and decisions on that basis. The use of statistical averages is key to almost every alt-right argument, and the application of these averages to determine what solutions should be promoted universally is generally considered to be an acceptable form of decision-making. There are certain circumstances that some members of the alt-right are willing to compromise on this over. However, for the most deeply held beliefs, this is not the case. Individual rights are considered less important than group rights, due to the perceived imminent danger of a white genocide and Muslim conquest of the West.
What?
This is not to say that members of the alt-right do not consider individual rights important. It's that the impending dangers override the importance of individual freedom. It seems that there is a common sentiment that individual rights are a good idea, but the danger is too great to take anything other than an authoritarian approach to the problem.
Ice as much?
Feelings are important. Although I suspect few in the alt-right would admit it, there is a deep well of emotion behind the alt-right as a movement, and their feelings are important. It is considered a moral imperative to preserve the white race, and the greater the size of the immigrant non-white communities in Western countries, the more pressing that imperative becomes. Many people in the alt-right, probably more specifically white nationalists, but not limited to them, believe that the nation or the white race is an extended family and would simply be more at home around white people, even if these people severely disagreed with them on an ideological level. The foreigner is the other, a competitor, and are therefore held in lower regard than a member of one's own race, in the same way that one might be more inclined to hire a family member than a complete stranger. Much of the energy behind this attitude is subjective and emotively rooted in the identity politics of white nationalism. Like all identity politics, it is irrational and tribal, and seems to take on an almost spiritual dimension. Justification for this position usually involves describing the history of the white race, and the passing on of one's patrimony to future generations for them to inherit. This idea is lacking in detail, and appears to be the high-minded ideal that many alt-right members hold as the greatest good. The fear of the reduction and eventual minority status of the white race, and subsequent loss of white power over Western countries, is the major driving force that keeps the alt-right politically active. Although there is a great depth of hatred for political correctness and anyone who promotes it, this would, on its own, probably not be enough to galvanize enough people to form a political movement. The emotional force generated by this fear, bottled up in the idea space of the alt-right, and rejected from mainstream social dialogue, combined with the perceived attacks against not only the white race, but also individual members of the alt-right, who conduct various types of activism on social media, make adherents to the alt-right particularly passionate about their cause. 17. Fanaticism. Put simply, there are many people who consider themselves a part of the alt-right who could accurately be described as fanatical. They love being a part of their in-group. They love fighting with other ideological groups on social media, through memes or shitposting, and they are convinced beyond a shadow of the doubt that their cause is just and their methods apt. Functionally, these people are no different to social justice warriors. In many ways, the alt-right is the ideological mirror of the progressive left, believing that all the same issues are valid political topics to be approached from a different direction, using the same tools, such as collectivism and authoritarianism. Those politically partisan to their cause use many tactics that are employed by SJWs. Name-calling, mislabeling, cherry-picking, narrative crafting, mobbing on social media, and
just a little heads up. For those who don't know, SJW, Social Justice Warriors. Yeah.
extreme bias are all found in the more die-hard alt-right activists. However, this is not a description of all or necessarily even most of the alt-right. It's hard to judge how many people there are involved in this kind of activism, but it's probably a very loud minority, drowning out the more reasonable voices, with exceptionally polarized and inflammatory rhetoric. Often these methods are deliberately chosen to grab attention and make people listen, but it is understood by most that in the long run, this probably does more harm than good.
That's true.
Conclusions. The alt-right is a movement of people who think they are justified in what they are doing. It is ideologically outside of mainstream political discourse for now. It has gained strength through the pathological altruism of the Western political class, particularly in Europe, and the popular undercurrent of resentment against political correctness. Ironically, social justice warriors, the strongest advocates for political correctness, are opening the door to the alt-right becoming a mainstream political event. By framing the argument as the progressive left advocating for minorities against whites, they have set the stage for a group to become the antagonist for this position, which is precisely what the alt-right is. Entertaining the complaints of the progressive left has made arguments from identity politics a legitimate area of discussion.
Whoops, sorry for that.
Framing the argument as the progressive left advocating for minorities against whites, they have set the stage for a group to become the antagonist for this position, which is precisely what the alt-right is. Entertaining the complaints of the progressive left has made arguments from identity politics a legitimate area of discussion, and the alt-right are capitalizing on that by presenting the anti-white agenda of the SJWs as proof of an attack on white people, because it is. The question of whether this attack has teeth is irrelevant. The progressive left have used liberal guilt to advance an agenda that is focused largely around racism and advocacy against whites, and that has been instrumental in the coalescing and growth of the alt-right to position themselves as advocates for whites. Needless to say, the alt-rights are not liberals or conservatives, and nor do they claim to be. They are as radical as their counterparts on the authoritarian left, as they both desire massive changes to the system. The formation of these two ideological positions, both in opposition to liberalism, is reminiscent of the ideological divide between Nazis and communists in 1930s Germany. That one side are avowed Marxists, and the other demands racial nationalization and takes serious issues with Jews, is surely not a surprise. Collectivism is once more on the march. It considers itself justified, and it is manifesting itself in its old Marxist and racialist forms. The intellectual history of the West is repeating itself. There will be dark days ahead.
Usually at this point here, it always has itself a mystery phrase here for you. Well, but this time here, you're gonna have to watch it out for yourself to see it. But you know, as my own opinion, just well, my own opinion to you, just be kind and loving to everyone around you. Doesn't matter if they're white or black or Muslim or Christian or Jewish. You gotta love them all. You don't need to be so let's say aggressive against each other. But if they're aggressive, you just need to get the hell out of there. Ain't no point in wasting your time with someone that's not worthwhile. Am I right? But yeah, moving on to the next video. This one's a little bit older of his. Doesn't have the introductory as well, but it's called This Week in Stupid. Here the date, part 1. And I don't know if my camera is actually blocking it, but you know what? It's really cringe-worthy. About, you know, the amount of people here. I mean, cringe is already a word by itself, so, being that said, let's have a look at it.
Hello everyone, welcome to This Week in Stupid for the 21st of February 2016. If you find anything you'd like to see in This Week in Stupid, please tweet using hashtag TWIS, or post it to our Sargon of Akkad. This week we're going to be pinning all of the world's problems on the white man, the Jew, and the system of white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. So let's begin with whiteness burning. Students are throwing colonial art on the pyre.
What?
That's exactly what I like to hear. If there's one thing that I really think is rational, sane, and not crazy in any way, it's burning art or books or anything that required human creativity to create. As soon as you start...
Oh boy. What are the odds? Happened to the same thing in Germany back in you know, 1930s, 1940s. Well, you know, exactly. Hitler ordered his troops. I don't know if it was the Schutzstaffel or just the common ground grunts, that they would take everything about Jewish art, Jewish books, and just burn them all down. Well,
burning art or literature from the inferior past, you know you're doing the progressive thing. This is of course not the first time this has happened. Last year, students at the University of Cape Town petitioned to remove a statue of Cecil Rhodes, the Victorian imperialist who, like most Englishmen of his time, held racist views. The statues were removed, but the students were still angry. It's almost like appeasement doesn't work, isn't it? Many marched on South Africa's parliament to complain about high college fees, amongst other things, presumably because capitalism is the tool of the white devil. UCT students starting a new academic year after the long summer break were quick to resume protests. Well, why wouldn't they be? It's worked out well for them so far, why would they stop now? And these are over gripes such as not having enough spaces in university dormitories. Oh my goodness, student dorms aren't exactly palatial mansions. They stormed through the campus, grabbing artworks and burning them. Most of the paintings they heaped on a bonfire were portraits of white historical figures. They were, declared one protester, symbols of the colonizer. Which is true, but then the university itself is a symbol of the colonizer. The first university was the University of Bologna, and so non-Europeans are now guilty of appropriating European scholastic culture. I find it offensive. Universities themselves are a symbol of the colonizer, and I'm pro-decolonization, so we need to smash all universities outside of Europe. Among the works they burned was a 1993 oil painting by a black anti-apartheid activist called The Extinguished Torch of Academic Freedom, one of a series of paintings depicting protests at the university. The thing is, I actually support this because this painting was of a protest that wasn't specifically railing against the white man, making it de facto an instrument of colonial oppression that needs to be decolonized by fire. Students defaced a bust of Maria Fuller, one of the first 4 women to attend the university. She enrolled in 1886 when most courses were only open to men, and she went on to play a role in opening a women's hall of residence. But she was white, which is why that bust has to be defaced. The protests are symptomatic of a resurgence of racial antagonism in South Africa, fanned by frustration over a slowing economy and high unemployment. Well, there's your problem. If the white colonialists hadn't brought the concepts of economy and employment to South Africa, they wouldn't be having these problems. The students then went on a riot, apparently refusing to leave the area and setting fire to other things like shacks and apparently a shuttle on the campus and various other things, and had to be put a stop to by rubber bullets and flashbangs by the security forces, all of whom I presume are white, members of the KKK, and covered in swastika tattoos. But here's a funny little nugget of information for you. Students arrested for damaging property at UCT included several who are not obviously poor, such as the son of the chief executive of Eskom, the state power utility. It's an amazing pattern we're seeing here, isn't it? Where the most vociferous activists are those who come from a privileged background. What a surprise. And a student leader at another university told the Daily Sun, "We're going to destroy everything." Well, more power to you. Everything seems to have been built by white men. And you know how evil white men are, so you should destroy everything. Seriously, trash everything that was made by white men. It must have been built for nefarious purposes. Sewers, roads, schools, universities, hospitals, especially the concept of inalienable rights that was endowed into mankind upon their creation. They have...
Wow. Holy hell. Destroy everything because it was made by people who are white. Wow. That doesn't sound racist at all. So it means if I destroy everything that was made by Islams, oh, that would be anti-Islamic at all. Let's destroy everything was made by Jews. Oh, that wouldn't be anti-Semitic at all, wouldn't it? Or not. Let's destroy everything You get the point, don't you? It's racist as hell. Let's get a move on.
To go. Because Black Lives Matter have visited...
Oh, 1 second. Needed to restart
Missouri
again.
University. And they say that if you support the Constitution, you are a white supremacist. So during the Black Lives Matter event, they emphasized that while activism was important, it was also important to engage in self-care. Quote, because there isn't that culture of collective care, it becomes up to each individual to figure out how to be resilient in the face of so much trauma we're facing. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. The ills of capitalism were a common thread throughout the different points in the guided discussion, with Gaza noting at one point that what we know about our world is that we depend on each other to survive, and that's not what our economic system teaches us. Wait. Are you saying that supply and demand is the basis of capitalism only involves one person and doesn't expressly outright state that people are obviously reliant on one another? One person to do the demanding and one person to do the supplying. I think this may have broken my brain. I don't see how it could be more explicit in the very catechism of capitalism that people rely on each other. So capitalism was not the only thing with which the speakers took issue. Really. I can't believe they have other grievances. In the Constitution, we are only something of a person. The people vowing to protect the Constitution are vowing to protect white supremacy and genocide, which I'm sure will come as a great surprise to Barack Obama, a constitutional scholar. And given that he's president of this white supremacist system, he has actually vowed to protect the Constitution, presumably making him king of the Uncle Toms. Apparently the activists also used the crabs in a bucket analogy, stating that people can talk about them all they want, but they forget that the bucket is not a crab's natural habitat.
What?
Are you saying that European civilization and the fruits of it are not black people's natural habitat? Because that sounds insanely racist. And I guess if you want to know how to end racism, the best person to ask would be a racist. It's going to take white people who benefit from this system of white supremacy to stand up and say, we're not going to take it anymore. Well, that's a really baffling strategy you're taking here, because why would the people who are benefiting from a system want to end that system? I mean, you're asking them to advocate directly against their own interests, which I don't really think they're going to do. And I think there might be quite a few black people who also like civilization and would like to stay there, if that's okay with you guys. But you know what, we're not nearly being intersectional enough to solve this problem. This problem of a system designed to perpetuate white supremacy. We need to look at the religious angle. Because white Christians also need to repent for systemic racism. So Jim Wallace is president and founder of the Christian magazine Sojourners, and has served President Barack Obama as a spiritual advisor. His newest book, America's Original Sin, Racism, White Privilege, and the Bridge to a New America, is an indictment of white Christian apathy and inaction towards systemic racism. Okay, I'm going to try and make this crystal clear for Jim Wallace. When I say, you have served President Barack Obama, and you think he is the president of a racist system. You think a system that is racist towards black people has a black president. Whatever you are interpreting as a racist system is probably in fact some system that's bigoted and biased in favour of high education or achievement. And given that the person at the top of this system is a well-educated, high-achieving black person, I'm thinking that focusing on the fact that this person is black is actually selling short other black people who might be more concerned with the fact that he's high-achieving and well-educated.
Let your mind taste that for a moment. Calling the US government, I say something extremely racist, but having itself a black president at the time. Wow, who would have thought? I mean, just let your mind taste it like a fine wine. A government that's anti-blacks, but has a black president on top. Can you taste it? Cause it sure as hell tastes like piss. And I haven't even, skunk piss, actually. Horrible.
Trying to fearmonger young black people into thinking that the system will prevent them from getting where they want to go due to their black skin is obviously not true. You call on white Christians to die to whiteness, saying that whiteness is an idol that separates white Christians from God. What does dying to whiteness mean? Whiteness is a myth. Well, if it's a fucking myth, then what are we worrying about? Race was created as a social construct to justify oppression. How do we get our souls back? It's an idolatry, really. Idols separate us from God. What are you fucking jabbering about? This is what happens when social justice meets religion. They gaze at each other longingly and say to each other in unison, "Your jargon is a magnificent way to bamboozle idiots. I may have to appropriate it." Dying to whiteness means to be aware of white privilege. Well, I would do, but whiteness is a myth. I've got it on good authority from a preacher that whiteness is a myth. And a preacher would never tell someone that something that doesn't exist really does exist, would they? As my free speech rights are still being defended by that last bastion of free speech, I have to split this into two parts, so please click on the screen to watch part 2, in which we'll be discussing some unsolicited opinions about Israel.
Oh boy, if that one just tastes itself very good, yes, very, very good, like a very, very taste of stupid wine. Let's go see what really what the worst of the storm's gonna bring us. But yeah, come to think about it again, if you do really like the Sargon of Akkad, feel free to check him out. He does a very good job at explaining, let's say, certain classes, certain types of people in our society, being social justice warriors being one of them. Meme and everything. But in that case, what can we do? Let's have I mean, of course, not every single one. He's going to talk about blacks. He's going to talk about weeaboos. He's going to talk about furries. Yes. You know, that's baloney. He just needs to explain, the ones who are just so technical to understand, like the alt-right in that case.
Welcome to part 2, where we will be discussing the intersection of social justice and neo-Nazism, as both sides have finally agreed that the problem is, of course, the Jews. 10 Brooklyn College students interrupt a faculty meeting to make demands and shout slurs at Jewish members. So a group of Brooklyn College students interrupted a faculty council meeting on Tuesday and allegedly demanded that the Zionists leave campus. Other demands ranged from calls for better pay for adjunct teachers to ending racist class offerings. According to a professor who spoke anonymously to the Jewish Telegraphic Agency, some of the faculty members at the meeting applauded during the students' vocal protests. I'm going to guess that these are gender studies professors who had also done their research on Twilight. The faculty member also told JTA that when the computer science professor and faculty council head told the students that they were out of order, They called him a Zionist pig, but the problem obviously doesn't just begin and end with Zionist pigs. It also begins and ends with Palestinian human rights activists. A lecture by Palestinian human rights activist Bassem Eid is disrupted by anti-Israel individuals at the University of Chicago. A Palestinian from Gaza even went as far as threatening him for speaking out against the Palestinian Authority and Hamas rather than Israel. He said that Hamas, quote, didn't do nothing. Unfortunately, Hamas did do something, at least according to the UN, who decided to place them alongside Israel in the category of groups of people who committed war.
Yeah, that's about on Israel and Hamas and Palestine, of course. There are people who are, of course, being bombarded, fragments, mortars, and all that stuff. It's really horrible and nasty situation, I tell ya. But, you know, Israel, Hamas... I mean, Hamas, it's one thing. It's not like, again... I do want to believe that Israel was the entirely of the one to blame and all that, but actually, when I realized it all, I mean, there was the Hamas, so there's that, because Hamas is a terrorist group, and Israel is well, they have their weapons, their equipment, but it's very high powerful. But yeah, which means that they both can do some damage, and that's what gets the concern about how to the other two others is how much damage they can make. And neither, I mean, should be applauded in this case, but you know, to do the right thing. Let's say a UN, United Nations committee to judge the factor about that, like. Let's say everyone will have justice because people die in war. And war never changes. And it never does anyway. Let me just reset here the record.
Crimes in the 2014 Gaza conflict. Seriously though, it does appear to be becoming apparent that there is a great deal of anti-Semitism on the rise in American universities, and it seems to be coming from social justice, if you can believe it. They give an example on February the 3rd. A Rutgers Associate Professor of Women's and Gender Studies gave an address called In Humanist Biopolitics, How Palestine Matters. The fuck has that got to do with women and gender studies? Also, this was partially sponsored by the Jewish Studies Department. So our gender studies professor began exhorting the students to support a boycott of Israel as part of armed resistance. Okay, this does seem like a weird thing for the Jewish Studies Department to have financed, but as reported by several in attendance at the speech, the professor introducing herself requested that it not be recorded.
One thing I just remind myself about is on this case about Israel and Palestine, that sometimes if you look up, you'd see like images of sometimes children being blown apart because of Israel bombs. Let's not forget about there's also Hamas, and sometimes the Hamas can also kill innocents because, you know, taking ISIS as an example, that's one thing to say about. Because, of course, ISIS means the Islamic State of Syria and Iraq. Yeah, but hey, they have their own multinational terrorist group and all this and all that. But hey, I'm not gonna get too much into detail about that, but it's just something that I remember myself about, that that in this scenario, anyone can blame the damage. Like, let's say, remember when you were back as a child, let's say you have like siblings, or let's suppose you have a sibling. Let's say this here is a pot of cookies that you wanted to. It falls down and breaks down to the ground, and sometimes you don't have the guts even to take the blame. And so what you do? It was him. That's right. Sometimes it would be easier just to put on the blame. Let's say it's better off to take mostly the reasonable side rather than the bang and blame side directly.
She passed on vicious lies that Israel had mined for organs for scientific research from dead Palestinians, updating the medieval blood libel against Jews, and accused Israelis of attempting to give the Palestinians the bare minimum for survival as part of a medical experiment.
What the fuck?
Fucking hell, this is the Jewish Studies Department headed by Joseph Goebbels. So the speech was co-sponsored by the Jewish Studies program, yet faculty members of the program remained silent in the audience during the event. Despite everything that was said, and despite that she did agree that the Israeli treatment of Palestinians amounted to genocide, but objected to the term itself just on the basis that it was too tethered to the Holocaust. Something to do with the taint of association with the Jews? I don't know. The thing is, I understand why they want to be critical of Israel. Israel is in a more powerful position than Palestine, which is why we need to pay more attention to what Israel is doing, because they have the potential to do the most damage here. However, claiming that they are committing genocide when the Israeli population is growing at half the rate of the population of the Gaza Strip as part of an ongoing trend, then you cannot claim these people are suffering from a genocide. They may well be being oppressed by Israel. I'm quite happy to agree on that point. They may well really have a shit quality of life, and it might be Israel's fault. However, exaggerating what has happened draws attention away from actual legitimate issues and onto the attention itself, which we know is not true because it is an exaggeration, as we have established with, say, the case of the Palestinian genocide. If we focus on the concept of a Palestinian genocide that isn't happening, then we're not talking about things that Israel is actually doing. And you are helping to perpetuate this state of affairs by presenting a roadblock to dealing with actual issues because you are a fucking hysterical bullshit merchant. But the thing is, if I didn't know about all of this, I would think that Jewish student claimed she came home to find a swastika taped to her apartment ceiling was also bullshit, but now I'm not so sure. So this happened at Rutgers University after Milo had given his speech there, and normally I would have thought to tie the two together. I would have said, well, this is clearly a case of a social justice warrior trying to get some attention and make it look like Milo's presence on the campus had inflamed neo-Nazis or something like that. However, now there's a chance that this has actually been done to Sarah by some progressive anti-Semite who thinks that she's a Zionist because she's Jewish. And no, I don't think this was done by a neo-Nazi because the swastika's the wrong way around.
And speaking about the swastika being the wrong way around, I've also heard, I've also studied about World War II that, let's say, the Heil Hitler was from this hand. If someone did with this hand, you'd be insulting the entire Reich. And that's why, and of course, be shot on sight as a result. But anyways, let's go back here. Just a little fun fact.
She also said that I strongly came to suspect that someone I know was involved, but could not definitely prove it. He certainly ran fast enough and hid when the police arrived. I wonder how many neo-Nazis she's even acquainted with. Speaking to the tab, Sarah said, no student should walk into an empty room and see a swastika, a KKK symbol, a Confederate flag with a cross burning. A student should never be exposed to symbolism of hate. Okay, well, she's an SJW then, right? She said that one of my Muslim friends put it best. I am not even of your faith, and I am offended and feel assaulted. God, they breed him sensitive at Rutgers, don't they? I didn't think I'd actually be talking all that much about Milo's tour around American universities talking about free speech. I don't know why I thought this was just going to be something that passed by without any particular comment. It seems to have turned a bunch of students fucking nuts. Listen to this guy.
Solidarity against these people. Come on, let's do it.
Hold on a sec. This is going to be interesting. Let me just.
No, that's cool, man.
When did the most cringe-worthy chant of 2016?
Hey, hey, ho ho! He gets free speech, it's got to go. Hey, hey, ho ho! Fuck enlightenment, it's got to go. Hey, hey! I don't have a big dick.
Listen for that guy. He just comes in with saying like, "What's up, motherfucker? What's up, motherfucker?" Something like that.
Suck myself. Milo can suck his own dick.
Motherfucker, get the fuck out of here.
Well, I'm not gonna leave, dude. No.
Get the fuck out.
Why should I leave?
Motherfucker, get the fuck.
Hey, don't touch my stuff, man.
Fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. You're not fucking welcome here. Get the fuck out of here.
I'm not welcome.
Take your whole crew, fuckboys here. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, we're gonna have an orgy.
I'll see you guys at work, motherfuckers. I'll see you guys at work.
Why are you so angry?
Both of you are, all of you are motherfuckers. You all motherfucking fuckboys. Get the fuck out of here. Shit. All you guys are pieces of shit. Man.
Why are we pieces of shit?
Because you misogynist pricks.
Why are we misogynists?
Because you support a motherfucker who makes race threats against.
No, where's he said that?
Narrative mode.
Where's he said that?
All the fucking time.
No, give me an example. Give me an example.
Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here.
Me? Okay, that's pro-enlightenment.
Go home and fucking blow your fucking brains out, man.
What, you want me to
go blow your
why should I kill,
man?
Why should
because you're a fucking piece of shit.
Why am I a piece of shit?
Because you exist. Because you were aborted. Fucking kill yourself, man. I love you, man. Kill yourself. Jesus.
I watched a few videos about Call of Duty servers and something like this, and you know, I never thought I'd see the same type of people who do like this type of kill yourself because you're a piece of shit. I just thought that thing only happened in Call of Duty servers, but not. Oh boy, let's continue.
Jesus loves you. Jesus loves you. What Jesus?
Get the fuck out of here, motherfucker. Get the fuck out of here.
What do you think about cologne? What do you think about
sorry.
cologne?
Get the fuck out of here, motherfucker.
Do you know what happened in Germany?
Fuck out of here.
I'm trying to ask you a question. I love you, man. I love you.
Fuck
I love you. Why?
Get the fuck out of here.
No, I'm not gonna leave.
Get the fuck out of here.
I'm not gonna leave, man.
Get the fuck out of here, motherfucker. Get the fuck out of here.
No, I love you.
Get the fuck out of here, motherfucker.
Get
Get the fuck out of here, motherfucker.
Why night?
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck off campus.
Persian queen.
You fucking pieces of shit. All of you. Get the fuck out of here.
Jesus.
Get the fuck out of here.
Why are you so angry?
Get the fuck off campus. Right the fuck down. Get the fuck out of
Why are you
here.
so angry? I love you, man.
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck off of here.
Why?
The other guy, he's just playing around.
Get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. You and the rest of your fucking misogynist fuckboys are out of here.
Fuckboys.
Misogynist
Misogynist
fuckboys.
fuckboys.
Because you're a misogynist fucking prick. And your birth was a fucking accident. Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
The birth is an accident.
I mean, like, the best part of you probably went down and cracked your mom's ass. So, get the fuck out of here, dude.
The air horns.
Fuck off.
Only people that
Fuck
agree
off.
with you are left.
Fuck off.
All right, thank you, sir.
Fuck off.
That guy never chill.
That's fine. Do you get that? No. This is free speech, man. I can do wherever I want. This is public space. I know, but you see what happened out here.
Oh.
The reason I'm here is I'm fighting fascist, left-wing cultural Marxists like these people. I didn't know that. What?
Left-wing cultural Marxist.
Yeah. I think your ideology is wrong. I think your ideology is wrong. You don't know what my ideology is. I think are you for the First Amendment? In certain circumstances. Holy shit! You only believe in free speech in certain circumstances? Oh my god, that's terrifying, man. So like North Korea?
Look at
like China?
Look at the history of our country. It's been that way the entire time. They're saying no more hate speech.
Okay.
No more wrong things.
Said that it's hate speech.
He compares Black Lives Matter to the Ku Klux Klan.
What? Well, they are the
Shoot fits.
We're not hanging white people.
No. They're saying you should kill cops.
Triggered.
Don't you want to have a discussion? I guess not. They don't want to have a discussion, man.
I'll tell you, I found that hilarious. I had to play the whole thing just because their reactions are amazing. Just everything about it is just wrong. You know, everything about it is this cult mentality. I think your ideology is wrong. Yeah, well, I think your ideology is wrong. What the fuck? You don't know what my ideology is. I mean, that's just anyone you could have said that to. So if they'd criticised you, like, no, you're wrong, without knowing anything about what they believe. This is fucking insane.
Ooh. Rutgers students hold group therapy session after Milo Yiannopoulos visit. Daily News. Oh, group holds forum on aftermath of buried hearts editors talk at institution. Wow.
I just can't believe how these people are responding. Rutgers students hold group therapy session after Milo Yiannopoulos' visit. So campus newspaper The Daily Targum reports that students and faculty members held a wound-licking gathering at a cultural centre on the campus, where students described feeling scared, hurt and discriminated against.
And triggered.
Because a gay man gave a talk about freedom of speech. One student at the event told the Targum that they broke down crying after the event, while another reported that he felt scared to walk around campus the next day. According to the report, many others said they felt unsafe at the event and on campus afterwards. It is upsetting that my mental health is not cared about by the university, said one student at the event. Oh, well, I care about your mental health. I'm starting to think you people need to be fucking sectioned. I do not know what else there is for us to do to be heard, for us to be cared about. I deserve an apology. Everyone in this room deserves an apology. So you're not only paranoid and delusional, this person is also delusionally narcissistic, as to think that someone else exercising their right to free speech should come with an apology for any feelings hurt in the process. Honestly, I don't think it's a coincidence that most people who go around advocating for social justice also have mental health problems. Seriously, I want to see a study examining the correlation between advocacy of social justice and mental health problems.
Well, alright. We can get Crybully added to the... Bingo. But yeah, pretty much that's gonna be all for the time being. Actually, I had plans to play Cry of Fear, actually. But you know what? And it's gonna be all for pretty much. And and also this is pretty much a study about sociology. And if you're studying sociology in school, college, university, there you go. You now have Sargon of Akkad to show to yourself, your teacher, and whoever else you wish to show you. And again, after this one, it's all finished and uploaded. I do believe I should play some Cry of Fear. So being that said, I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. And I look forward to the next one. So I'll see you next time. And until then...